Hello and welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, September 26th through Sunday, October 2nd, 2022. Now we're already wrapping up September and moving into October, into a new month. And this week we do have a few interesting things going on astrologically. Now, first of all, it is the first week after a new moon, a Libra new moon. So we are starting a new lunar cycle. Of course, how that will affect you personally it depends on your own personal chart. But for all of us as a whole, we're exploring themes involving relationships. That's, kind of the biggest keyword for Libra. But also, how do we enjoy ourselves? Where do we find pleasure in life, especially like intellectual pleasures? A lot of that has to do with like socializing and things of that nature, interpersonal relationships. We kind of circled right back to relationships again. That's kind of what Libra likes to explore. So all of these kind of themes are what we will explore each in our own way over the next month or so. But this starts out with this week, and as the moon starts to gain a little bit of light each day, there will be generally increased activity kind of just building up in the background. Besides that, we also have Venus moving into Libra this week, so that's pretty cool. Just like anything else, how that will affect you also depends on your own personal chart. But for all of us as a whole, Venus in Libra is a crowd pleaser. Venus is in domicile in Libra, so it means that her energies are very strong and kind of straightforward, tangible, easy to digest type of way. This is much different from where Venus was. Venus was in Virgo, where Venus is in fall. So this is kind of a debilitated position. So especially not only relating to like the pleasure of life, but also finances. Venus has a lot to do with money and how we spend on ourselves, how we find pleasure in this life, I guess. All of that was kind of debilitated for the last few weeks while Venus was in Virgo. So Venus moving into Libra is definitely kind of a step up in that area. Generally speaking, it's just easier to find pleasure. The themes surrounding pleasure and desire, abundance, just come a little bit more naturally with Venus in Libra. Venus sort of bestows upon us abundance and pleasure, and we may not actually have to necessarily work super hard for it. Venus is one of the easier energies to work with. We also have a first quarter moon happening in 9 degrees Capricorn at the end of this week. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And last but definitely not least, probably the most anticipated event for this week is Mercury turning direct at 24 degrees Virgo. In other words, Mercury retrograde will end late this week, so I'm sure a lot of you are excited about that. I always say Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be a bad thing. I definitely recognize how dysfunctional it is, especially since it's been in Virgo. Mercury retrograde in Virgo is extra dysfunctional. I keep getting screenshots of people showing me this broke down, or I had this weird situation. This is one of the more well-known parts of astrology, I think, and it's because it's so tangible. There's so many things. Even at my place of work, we had multiple things break down on the day that Mercury turned retrograde. So that just kind of goes to show. So when it comes to traveling, working, all these things we have to do in our lives, all of that will come a little bit easier now that Mercury is turning direct. One thing I wanted to point out though is that after Mercury initially turns direct at 24 degrees Virgo this week, Mercury will still be in that pre-shadow, or excuse me, the post-shadow after the Mercury retrograde. So in other words, Mercury is still, like Mercury has basically gone backward, retrograde, and then now Mercury still has to traverse that same area that it just went backward in, or appeared to go backward in. So what that means for us astrologically is that we're still dealing with the same themes that we have been during Mercury retrograde. It's just that now we're dealing with those in a much more linear, like forward moving type of way. This is the easiest part of the whole Mercury retrograde cycle, kind of wrapping it up, moving forward. So we're not so much focused on like integrating and processing things and going back and figuring out what we missed. All that was done during Mercury retrograde. Now is the easy part. Now we just apply that knowledge. Now we move forward, and this typically happens in a pretty easy, natural kind of way. All right. So with all that being said, let's go into the day by day for this week's forecast. Okay, so we start out Monday, September 26th, and this is right after the new moon. Looks like the new moon happened late on Sunday, so you can see here moon is still in Libra, right next to the sun pretty much. So we're still kind of experiencing that new moon, the new beginning. This is definitely not the most active part of the lunar cycle. This is the more quiet part because this is the very beginning of something new. So this is the very beginning when an idea is just formed in our mind, or it's more non-physical in nature. So there may be like an inspiration to try something new, but we haven't applied this new energy yet. This new energy hasn't really fully kind of been birthed into the world, if that makes sense. It's more like the seeds have just been planted. So we will see the sprouts actually come up, and things start to get going a little bit more once the moon gets more light, especially with that first quarter moon happening at the last part of the week. Right now it's a little bit more quiet. It's kind of it looks like a more easygoing way to start the week, honestly. Sun is in fall in Libra. Moon does pretty well there, but Libra's a methodical sign. Libra likes to think everything through. It doesn't like to cause too much drama or too much of a ruckus. It's a relatively peaceful sign. So with Sun and Moon there, this is a more kind of easygoing start to the week for sure. One major aspect, which actually involves three planets, that's happening on Monday, as well as it does go into Tuesday a little bit too, but we have Mercury conjoining Venus at 26 degrees Virgo. So, in other words, like Mercury and Venus will make a quick pass to each other, because at this point, Mercury is starting to slow down. It's preparing to go stationary direct, but it's still retrograde. And Venus is just direct, of course, so that they're passing each other relatively quickly right now at 26 degrees Virgo. And as they do that, they both trine Pluto, which is at 26 degrees Capricorn. So this is kind of interesting when you stack multiple aspects together. Mercury conjunct Venus is typically probably the best aspect for socializing, for like good social, good I don't know, conversations, good social events. Like it's a good time to have like a party or something, because Mercury is the intellectual energy, and then Venus adds some flair, some, I don't know, pleasure, desire. It likes to make things beautiful and things of that nature. So that's where you can have these really intellectually stimulating, but also really pleasant kind of conversations with Mercury conjunct Venus. Now, Mercury is retrograde, so the nature of those conversations may be a little bit strange or weird. They may be a little bit more reflective or nostalgic, focused on the past, things like that, or just focused on kind of bizarre, things, for lack of a better word. Mercury retrograde makes us more intuitive. It helps us to notice things that we don't typically notice. So that's where, I'd be really curious to maybe just pay attention to what kind of conversational topics come up, or I don't know, people's mannerisms. They may just be a little bit off kilter, which I think would be interesting. Venus makes things pleasurable and desirable, as I stated. So this is definitely, it's not weird in a bad way. It's more just kind of interesting, provocative, curious, that type of thing. Now, as we factor in this trine to Pluto, this means that Pluto's energy is being channeled through Mercury and Venus as well. Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008, and during that time, we've been focusing on a lot of these darker parts of our society, of hierarchies, the corruption or the insecurities on a deep, like, systemic level, and kind of the darker sides, darker aspects to those types of things. But with Mercury and Venus trining Pluto, this is trine is a harmonious aspect. It's the easiest aspect we can really work with. So this may show that maybe we are uncovering some kind of truth about our world, but it's in an easy way. It's in a way that's digestible. These truths may be a little bit dark in nature, but it's nothing too heavy, it's a harmonious aspect. So it brings out the best in this Plutonian energy, I think, here. Mercury trine Pluto. Let's see, I think that was the main thing I wanted to cover. Yeah, and that's the main aspect that's really defining the day here. So yeah, all in all, pretty easygoing start to the day, start to the week, really. Very interesting information may come about, though. It's I don't know, this is a weird energy. It's almost like you may have a really enjoyable conversation or multiple conversations, but through those conversations, you may actually pick up on some really deep, profound information. And this information, like I said, it has to do with hierarchies and the structure of reality, but this does not only apply to us systemically and societally, it also applies to us individually as well. So what is the structure of your life? What hierarchies are you a part of? Even just at your current place of work, or maybe in your family, whoever's on top, so to speak, or whoever's in control, you may I don't know, see them from a different angle today, or pick up on new information with that structure within your own life. Going forward to Tuesday, September 27th, technically Mercury makes the exact trine to Pluto on Tuesday, today, on the 27th. So basically, we're still dealing with a lot of those same issues of really pleasurable conversations, interesting, provocative, kind of weird, but fun conversations in which we are picking up on interesting aspects of our world, of the structures of our lives, hierarchies, things of that nature. All of that applies to Tuesday as well as Monday. On Tuesday, though, things do change in the latter half of the day, Eastern Standard Time, when Moon leaves Libra and it enters Scorpio. Now, this is pretty interesting because once the Moon enters Scorpio, both the luminaries will be in their fall positions. In other words, Sun in Libra is in its fall position. It's debilitated. This is the most challenging Sun sign to experience. And with Moon in Scorpio, same thing. Moon is in fall in Scorpio. This is the most challenging Moon sign to experience in transit. So with Sun and Moon in their fall positions and the Moon approaching the South Node, things are a little bit kind of weird or spooky, unusual. We feel kind of uncomfortable in our own skin. I think part of this too is Mercury is slowing down. It's preparing to. It's basically coming to a standstill in Virgo. It's slowly stopping before it will slowly start to go direct at the end of this week. So that too is also something that would help us to feel, I don't know, a little uncomfortable or weird, unusual. We feel kind of alien to ourselves or to each other with all this going on. Sun in Libra, Moon in Scorpio, and Mercury beginning to go stationary. So this brings a little bit of intensity to things, a little bit of weirdness, awkwardness. If you are a person who is you think outside the box, you're really open to weird or unusual ideas and feelings, concepts, this will be easy for you. This will be nothing. This might be actually really interesting. These energies, although they can be maybe more challenging or unusual, I think they're the most interesting types of energies when you get like detriment or debilitated planets, because they allow you to see things from a different perspective. Maybe we do feel, I don't know, out of our bodies or something, but because of that, you get a really interesting perspective. Okay. But on the flip side, if you are someone who's more mainstream, so to speak, it's like, why can't things just be simple and be linear? If you have that kind of mentality, that this is going to be more difficult. So I would say, starting on Tuesday and going for the next couple days, just be open to kind of the weird or the unusual. I guess that even applies to the beginning of this week, with those other aspects I just mentioned too. So yeah, it really looks like a weird time. This isn't unusual for this time of year. As you all know, it's October. It's almost October, so it's the fall season. It's almost like Halloween type of season. We usually get a lot of detriment and debilitated planets right around this time. So that's kind of what contributes to some of this feeling weird or spooky, spiritual, things of that nature. So it can be fun. It can definitely be fun as long as we aren't too rigid in our expectations. If you're planning everything and you're having a lot of like strict, tight plans, which sometimes we have to do that, but things may not go the way as planned, especially this week. And this is only going to get weirder too. I've been talking for months about how things are going to get kind of weird in Libra and especially Scorpio season. We're going to move into eclipse season in October. So this does look like a weird week, but this definitely is not the end of it. This whole season is kind of weird. This whole part of the year, really. So yeah, all in all, Tuesday looks like still a pretty easygoing day, but things do get really unusual, weird, provocative. Um, what else? The only challenging part is, I think I kind of just went over that. We just feel out of our bodies, or we feel like strangers to ourselves and each other. So that can be fun if we are open with it and don't take things too seriously, but it can also be a little bit uncomfortable, I think, especially if we're not used to it or not expecting it. Going forward to Wednesday, September 28th, Moon continues through Scorpio, so Moon is still in fall, all that good stuff I just talked about that started on Tuesday. Moon approaches the South Node though, so this also contributes to feeling unusual, or things are a little bit darker or more twisted or strange, ethereal, that type of thing. What else? Moon in Scorpio also, as it passes the south node, I think it also brings up issues for like from the past too, which we are probably used to at this point since we're at the latter stages of a Mercury retrograde. But yeah, kind of I don't know, deeper psychological things from our past may kind of bubble up to the surface. Insecurities, fun stuff like that, things of that nature may kind of come up with Moon and Scorpio. Moon and Scorpio is so like psychological. It wants to understand everything. It wants to figure out itself and other people. So yeah, so we may kind of I don't know be privy to more information of a mysterious nature with Moon and Scorpio passing the South Node. And then also something I mentioned before, though, but I did want to kind of go over this again. So, Moon is gaining light now. It's kind of like a sliver in the sky. It's gaining a little bit of light, a little bit more visible. So, we are getting a little bit more activity going on from this lunar cycle. So, more activity just in our personal lives in general. And as the moon kind of gains light, light can be a sort of a symbol for information. So, as the moon gains light in Scorpio, which is fixated on solving mysteries and things of that nature, there's more light to illuminate the darkness, there's more room to kind of figure out things. And that's something that kind of has to do with like all these things going on right now, the sun and moon in their fall positions, Mercury retrograde turning direct. All of this can really bring us to maybe seeing a different perspective or coming across unusual information that we may not usually be open to or able to access. So yeah, definitely weird stuff going on, but potentially very interesting. We do have one aspect for Wednesday, that is Mars trining Saturn. So Mars at 19 degrees Gemini makes a trine to Saturn at 19 degrees Aquarius. These are two malefic energies, so they can be, they're considered like troublemakers. Ancient astrologers associated them with like, plagues and natural disasters and things of that nature. In our current reality, in our modern world, we don't necessarily look at the planets as evil. We kind of just see pros and cons more so. Like it's more of fluffy, I guess, in nature a little bit. But with Mars trining Saturn, this is a trine. Again, it's a harmonious aspect. This is, one of the easiest aspects to work with. And Mars and Saturn, although they can be problematic, one advantage is that they help us to be more ambitious. Mars is the planet of ambition and drive and kind of goals, ambitions, conquering things. And then Saturn kind of helps us to maybe structure those drives a little bit more. Mars is our immediate drives, but Saturn helps us to think about, well, what about the long-term future? How do I, really strategize so I can accomplish something much bigger in nature than, something more immediate. So really, having these planets trine like this could be really great for goal setting today or strategizing. These are happening. These are in air signs, so this could have to do with, maybe theorizing for the very long future. Air signs love to kind of strategize and imagine and think about the future. Air signs are also very social in nature, so we may be. This sounds kind of weird, but you may be like an ambition that has to do with our social dynamics. So maybe just I don't know, thinking, I don't know what that would even be exactly, but it could have to do with maybe your workplace, like social situations at your workplace that you have a desire to improve upon or change in some way. Maybe like networking. This could be a really, really great energy for networking. I guess that's kind of the word I was looking for. I don't know, brushing up on like social connections or professional connections, things of that nature. That looks, really good because, this is a air dynamic, like so focused on intellectual stuff, talking to people, sharing information. But with Mars and Saturn, it's very decisive and strategic. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to chat with whoever just for fun. This is there's like a point to everything. It's like, I'm going to talk to this person for this reason, with this intention, to accomplish this kind of goal type of thing. And as always, how this affects you personally will, of course, depend on your own astrology, but for everyone in general, I think this would just make us more more aware of our own intentions when it comes to not only social dynamics but also just our future plans in general. Okay, going forward to Thursday, September 29th, Moon continues through Scorpio. This is the last full day that Moon will be in Scorpio. So again, with both the luminaries in their fall positions, really weird stuff, seeing things from different perspectives still during this whole middle part of the week going into Thursday as well. But something on a different note is we do have Venus finally entering Libra. So this is very different. This is Libra where the sun is as well, but it's very different because Venus in Libra is, a totally different animal than Sun in Libra. Sun in Libra is in fall, it's debilitated, it's unusual, it's quirky, it kind of lacks ego, so it allows us to see things from outside of the box. With Venus in Libra, that's very different. This is a very straightforward energy. Venus is acting like her normal self, so Venus in Libra is more exploring the side of desire and pleasure that has to do with social desire, pleasure, abundance, pleasure that you experience through relationships. So this has to do with like dating or romance a lot of the time. It is a very intellectual energy though. So this is it's kind of like, if I could think of a metaphor for it, it's kind of like the first part of a relationship, or kind of like dating. Very intellectual in nature, a lot of just talking, getting to know someone maybe with a different background than yourself, bouncing ideas and like feelings off of, but mostly information though. It's more informationally oriented. I don't know if that's a word, but yeah. But that's kind of what we're experiencing all in our own way with Venus in Libra. Maybe just focusing more on our relationships and having fun with each other, talking to interesting people, or the fun thing about it is that through connecting with someone different, each person is unique, and therefore each connection between any two people is going to be unique. And so by connecting with other people, you bring out different parts of yourself, basically. Each person sees you in a slightly different way, and just interacting with someone will bring out a different side of yourself. So I think this is one of the main themes of Libra. I think all Libra people know this very inherently, but we can all experience this and have a little fun with it for the next few weeks as Venus goes through Libra. Okay, going forward to Friday, September 30th. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to this new program. So with Friday, September 30th, we have a couple things going on. So Moon does leave Scorpio and it enters Sagittarius. This is a very, very different dynamic than we had earlier in the week. And I think it's actually really perfect for a Friday. Friday, I feel like stereotypically for Friday, it's kind of a warm day where we're, excited for the weekend, depending on your schedule, obviously. But for all of us kind of in general, we're excited for the weekend. I don't really have to explain that. But this totally fits with what's going on with the astrology for this week, because as the moon enters Sagittarius, it's very different than Scorpio. Moon in Scorpio is all debilitated. Moon in Scorpio is more of a pessimistic energy. This is a huge change. As Moon enters Sagittarius, it's very optimistic. We are, wanting to celebrate, have some fun, maybe focus on some kind of big ideas, or, maybe, I don't know, let's do something. Let's go watch a movie or go on an adventure. Moon in Sagittarius is such an open type of energy. So not only does that kind of boost up the morale a little bit and helps us to maybe have more fun and things of that nature and see the glass half full, so to speak, but also in addition to all that, as Moon goes through these first degrees of Sagittarius, it will also sextile the sun. So Moon sextile Sun is a really easy, harmonious aspect to experience. If you see the Moon at this time, I think the Moon literally looks beautiful as it makes this aspect to the Sun too, because this is a waxing crescent Moon at this point. So the crescent Moon is like, it's this beginning part of the lunar cycle where, things are kind of, there's something beginning. It may have to do again with your relationships, things of a Libra kind of nature. But this is the more like harmonious, graceful part of the beginning. The moon is a crescent, so it's just kind of starting out, just getting some light. It's like kind of pretty at this point. It won't be until later that we have a little bit of a more volatile beginning where things really get, pushed into motion here. But this is just kind of the very beginning. It's almost like a sunrise type of energy. It's just things are kind of just waking up. We're just like yawning and stretching and moving into this new energy that has just kind of been birthed into the world. And what better sign to do that than have Moon in Sagittarius, such a warm, outgoing, adventurous type of energy that we can all experience. So this is really cool. I would expect everyone to generally be in a pretty good mood with Sun in Libra and Moon in Sagittarius. I think it's really nice. Sun in Libra is debilitated, so it can be generally difficult for all of us. But like I said, there's pros and cons. There's advantages to being a little bit outside of the box, things of that nature. But with Moon in Sagittarius, it kind of backs up this energy. It strengthens a little bit, and it adds some warmth, some fire that we have with Sagittarius as well. So really, really cool, really perfect for a Friday. I think this could be perfect for having good conversations. Mercury is about to station direct, so Mercury's pretty much not moving at this point. I did want to state this applies to a lot of the week actually, but especially during these last few days of the week. With Mercury slowing down and it's pretty much at a standstill, this intensifies the Mercury energy. And Mercury is technically exalted in Virgo right now, so it's already strengthened. And as it is direct and exalted, it's even strengthened even more so. It's intensified. So with Sun in Libra sextiling Moon in Sagittarius, this to me looks like a really great day for social interactions and just having fun with one another, going on adventures together, even if those adventures are just cerebral in nature, like intellectual. But I think some really intense kind of information could come about, considering that Mercury is pretty much stationary at this point. This could also intensify the way we communicate with one another. So just keep that in mind. I guess that's really all I wanted to say about that. Yeah. Okay. So Saturday, October 1st, Moon continues through Sagittarius. Again, this is really like warm, kind of vibrant energy, fun-loving, adventurous. It's almost like holiday type of energy. And I think for, entering the month of October, where we start to get more into the holiday time of year in the United States anyway, I think this is kind of perfect to start out October with Moon in Sagittarius and this kind of now dissipating sextile with the Sun. These are warm, kind of fun, easy energies. We still have that like spookiness or weirdness with Sun in Libra, but it can be fun. It's weird. Weird to me is not necessarily a bad word. It's it definitely can be a lot of fun as well. Anyway, on Saturday we do have Venus opposing Jupiter. So Venus at 3 degrees Libra will oppose Jupiter at 3 degrees Aries. This is kind of interesting. Venus and Jupiter are said to be the two great benefics. In other words, these are the planets whose themes in astrology are the easiest to deal with. Both Venus and Jupiter bestow upon us abundance and pleasure and desire. Jupiter is in a more like abstract kind of way or philosophical type of way. It can be more cerebral in nature. Venus is more kind of like dealing with just money or pleasurable experiences, more kind of immediate things of that nature. But with Venus opposing Jupiter, I think it's symbolizing like a split with our pleasure, with our desire, with our abundance. This could have to do with money. A lot of it has to do with social interactions though, and relationships, because this is in the Libra Aries axis, which has to do with how do I balance my own needs with the needs of other people? How do I honor and recognize, my own truth, my own thoughts, feelings, etc., but also honor all of that, from other people as well. How do you compromise, or ideally, how do you honor yourself as well as other people without compromising, yourself or their needs? These are the themes of Libra and Aries, this Aries Libra axis. So with this opposition here, there could be a kind of crossroads. How do you like you may have a relationship where you are on kind of different pages, or you have to balance your needs with someone else's needs in some way. And again, like I'll say this a million times, if you want to know how this affects you personally, look to where the first few degrees of Libra and Aries fall in your chart. This could have to do with your job or your home life, or maybe a personal relationship. For all of us in general, this is more kind of social in nature. It has to do with our relationships, but depending on your personal chart, this could affect you in a slightly different way. Yeah, and then as for the overall vibe for Saturday, though, it looks really great still. We still have Sun in Libra with Moon in Sagittarius. They're not technically sextiling anymore, but they are at least sextile by sign. In other words, Sun in Libra, Moon in Sagittarius, these two signs work very well together. They're similar enough to relate and kind of mesh well, to integrate well with one another, but they're different enough that they complement each other. So both Libra and Sagittarius are kind of intellectual in nature. I don't know, they're focused on like ideas and like interesting, like deep conversations, things of that nature. But they're different because Libra's air, it's more detached, and Sagittarius is fire, so it's very passionate. So they kind of oppose, but also like balance each other, if that makes sense. So this comes to us in a really nice way. It's kind of just it's a fun energy, I think. It's really great for a Saturday as well, for the weekend. The only thing, like I said again, with Mercury about to station direct, I think that could make for a really unusual, kind of weird weekend. Words can be more intense, mannerisms can be more intense. You may come across intense or like really deep, rich information as well. And I would speculate that this will just come to you sort of kind of out of nowhere, maybe without you necessarily looking for that information. Lastly, on Sunday, October 2nd, things get a little bit wild on this last day of the forecast here. So, where do I even begin? So, Moon does leave Sagittarius and enters Capricorn in the morning, Eastern Standard Time here. This again is a very different energy. Moon is now in detriment in Capricorn. So, it's a little bit like Moon in Scorpio, where it's kind of debilitated in a way. Moon in Capricorn is just very difficult because Moon typically represents how we feel in the immediate moment. And when it's in Capricorn, Capricorn's not really about that. In Capricorn, with Capricorn energies, you really have to focus on the long term. You can't really just act how you feel in the moment. You have to maybe push aside your immediate desires in order to ensure you accomplish what you want in the long term. So that's where there's this kind of like struggle that comes with Moon and Capricorn. Moon also represents like our innermost feelings. It's kind of like a soft kind of thing, soft theme that Moon represents. And in Capricorn's, it's dry. Capricorn's like the beginning of winter. We have to be tough. We have to be responsible. We can't always just be softies, just doing what we want. We gotta, really get to work sometimes. So Moon in Capricorn is more of a difficult kind of energy. And again, it's one of those things where if let's say you have Capricorn energies in your chart, or Earth in general, this won't be a big deal for you. You're used to, everything I just described. You kind of embody that already. But depending on your astrology, if your astrology is very different, it may be more difficult for you. But there is that, and this is a little bit more stressful as well, just because Moon is coming within orb of a square to the sun. In other words, we're about to have the first quarter moon. So we actually do have that first quarter moon happening at 9 degrees Capricorn today. Looks like in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So this is basically Sun in Libra squaring Moon in Capricorn. This first quarter square, this first quarter moon, is, I would say, the most volatile part of the lunar cycle, even more volatile than the full moon. Everyone knows about the full moon. Full moon gets a lot of, credit or attention. But really, the first quarter moon, I would definitely look at. This is where everyone's kind of riled up. There's so much energy. It's very volatile. If you want to begin something, this is an excellent time to launch a project. Now, it's going to be a little bit weird because Mercury is turning direct today as well. So I guess that would also make sense to be starting a new project, beginning something, launching something. It just may be a little bit rocky at the very start because with Mercury just making that transition, sometimes it can be rough for us, especially when Mercury's just turning retrograde, and like in this case when Mercury's just turning direct, because it's literally changing direction, at least from our perception from Earth. And as it does so, it's a bit of a adjustment process. There's a bit of a shock at first because as dysfunctional as Mercury retrograde is, it's almost like we kind of get used to it over the few weeks that's happening. So with Mercury first turning direct, it may be a little bit rocky for launching a new project, but I'm kind of imagining like a plane, like one of those like bi-level with the two sets of wings, if that makes sense. Just starting to, pick up off the ground and take flight. And it may kind of waver a little bit, maybe a little bit bumpy kind of as it ascends. But then, you're good after that. You'll be cruising along once you get up to altitude. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's a good metaphor to kind of help you understand. But that's how I see Mercury turning direct. I've also compared it in the past to a train. It's like Mercury doesn't just instantly go from retrograde to direct. It slows down, it stops, and then it slowly starts going forward again, just like kind of like a train. So that's kind of what we're all doing, and this is a big deal because Mercury is exalted in Virgo. This is really strong. This is very noticeable. Um, let's see what else here. So yeah, it looks like a good day to start something. We may all be a little bit intense right now with Moon in detriment, the first quarter moon, Mercury turning direct. There's definitely a huge shift in things on Sunday. It's nothing super life changing unless all this falls in your chart a really particular way. I wouldn't see this as like, changing the world in a super dramatic way. I just think this is definitely kind of moving into a new like chapter or a new page, kind of just riling us up a little bit and pushing us to start something new. So with first quarter moons, I always say, the disadvantage is that we can be stressed, anxious, we can be restless. It can be hard to focus or hard to relax. It's not the best day for getting really good rest. But the advantage is that with all that kind of jittery, action-oriented energy, this, like I said, this is a great time to start something or just to be active in general. Moon in Capricorn is also so goal-oriented and strategic that would be a really great day to maybe honor one of your bigger strategies or your more long-term plans and get some real work done. Moving to the next level of some kind of strategy or plan or goal that you're working on. Sun in Libra and Moon in Capricorn. Libra and Capricorn are actually kind of surprisingly similar in certain ways. Both of these are very professional signs, and they're both very kind of detached. They both have a Saturn connection. Saturn is in domicile in Capricorn and exalted in Libra. So these are both very detached, objective signs. They're also both very like intentional signs. They have intentions or goals that they want to meet. They usually act with intention, if that makes sense. So long story short, I think this could be a really great day for maybe setting new goals or getting new work done on a goal you've already set. And also just for maybe, I don't know, just for shifting things. Like if you've been a little bit stagnant lately, this energy on Sunday will be great for like really riling you up, getting you motivated, getting you inspired, turning that fire back on, getting you to, I don't know, do something different, start something new. Even if it's just, maybe like exercising today, we're all going to have that extra energy. So something like that could be really worthwhile. But also, just a little kind of side note, I think this extra energy that comes with first quarter moons is most noticeable in children and animals, like any kind of like pets. Everyone is kind of up later at night usually during a first quarter moon, and we all just kind of feel that electricity in the air, that kind of jittery energy, so to speak. Yeah, okay, and then the only other thing I haven't covered for Sunday is that there is an imperfect aspect. So, in other words, this aspect technically will never come to fruition, but it is close enough. It has a close enough orb that it is definitely worth mentioning. So as Mercury turns stationary direct, it it's 1 degree off from opposing Neptune. So in other words, if Mercury kept retrograding just a little bit back farther into Virgo than it did or than it does in this case, it would make that exact opposition to Neptune, but it stops just short of that. So it's only 1 degree off. It is definitely close enough that we will experience that still. So, and I think this is really interesting with Mercury in its home sign. It's opposing Neptune, which is also in its home sign. So this is kind of a clash of two very strong energies. There's no clear winner here. Neptune in Pisces is really supporting us in exploring, soulful issues and themes and spirituality and collective consciousness, things of that nature. This is more of a background energy. This is a very far outer planet. And with Mercury in Virgo, I think I've talked, more than enough about Mercury in Virgo, but this is more the intellectual energy. It's more the day-to-day, the routine kind of energy. Where are we at intellectually, cerebrally? What kind of information are we delivering or coming across? So with these two energies connecting but kind of clashing at the same time, and, this is happening at a very pivotal moment when Mercury's changing direction, at least apparently changing direction. It's just kind of really wild how these things happen. I think this means that we may come across very unusual information. Now, this would already be the case with Mercury turning direct, coming across intense or really profound, deep information. All that would already happen with Mercury going direct like this. But because it opposes Neptune at the same time, we could really come across maybe information of a spiritual nature. This kind of energy or dynamic can also create mental instability. So that's where there's like the yin and the yang, the pro and the con. You may have a revelation on this type of day. You may come across new information or a new way of looking at things, which can be really enlightening and create, better self-awareness or awareness of your world. But on the flip side, there could just be general like neurotic energy that pushes us into mental or emotional instability as well, because it's almost like shifting your reality like that can be really great, but it can also be distressing, if that makes sense. So I would say on this day, it is a great day for starting something new, but when it comes to like the really intellectual, detail oriented type of activities, I would say to just maybe take it easy with that kind of stuff. If you do have to do something with a lot of planning or attention to small details, maybe just take a lot of breaks or be extra thorough, because it can be very easy to burn ourselves out mentally with this type of energy. Yeah, and this kind of is more like life advice, but I would say just kind of go with the flow with this type of day. Things are changing and shifting. Nothing super, super big really is going on, I don't think necessarily, but just generally, things are shifting. There's a lot of energy, and things are a little bit more dramatic or theatrical this weekend here. So just take it with a grain of salt. Kind of roll with the punches. You're not gonna know what's gonna happen. I think that's maybe the most frustrating, but also the most beautiful thing about life is that you don't know what's gonna happen. You have to just kind of go with it, especially with these kind of energies here. So that's what I have for you for this week. I hope all this kind of helps here. Yeah, things are finally getting interesting. Things were, there really weren't a lot of aspects all summer, pretty much. So, as an astrologer, it's getting a lot more interesting. That's not necessarily always good, though, as we experience it. But yeah, things are starting to heat up, and they're going to continue to get increasingly interesting as we go through fall here. Next week, we have Pluto turning direct at 26 degrees Capricorn. That's pretty cool, and it's actually pretty exciting because Mercury will be direct from from next week until, like the next time Mercury retrogrades, it will be in Aquarius. Mercury's going to go straight from 26 degrees Capricorn into Aquarius, and it will reach this new sign by next March. So this is a big deal. I'll talk more about that in another video, but Pluto hasn't changed signs since 2008. So we've just had Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. That's a lot, that's a big chunk of all of our lives. So it's going to be really exciting and interesting to see a new chapter that we will all experience collectively, a new stage of history as Pluto enters Aquarius soon. So Pluto direct, that's pretty exciting. We also have a full moon in Aries next week. So I hope all this helps, and stick around next week. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.